Hey everyone, and welcome to Lab 6. In this week's lab, we're going to be having you design your own classes, but we're also going to be using this time to set up a new IDE called Replit. So we're going to be using Replit for all of the lab assignments from here on out as our programming environment instead of the CS50 sandbox. But if you are using Linux on your own machine, something like Tuffix, and you prefer to do that, you are welcome to. But if you've been using the CS50 sandbox, we're going to suggest that you move over to Replit. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So what is Replit? Like the CS50 sandbox, it's an online browser-based IDE. It's pretty easy to use. It requires no setup. And it has all the tools that you have already been using in your sandbox, like the text editor where you write your code, and the terminal where you type in commands to build and test your code. Replit has a bunch more features that Sandbox doesn't have, like GitHub integration and live coding, kind of like Google Docs. But most importantly, Replit will not be lagging out or slowing down significantly, kind of like how CS50 Sandbox has been lately. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through all the setup steps that you'll need to do to set up your Replit account. Some of these setup steps are just a one-time thing. You'll just do them today, and then you already have it configured for future labs. But some of these steps you're also going to be doing for future labs, like importing your lab assignments into the Replit IDE. So to get started with Replit, you're going to want to sign up with Replit with your GitHub account. So when you go to replit.com, you're going to see a landing page like this, and you're going to click on either sign up or log in. You're just going to make sure that when you log in, you click on continue with GitHub so that it connects to your GitHub account. I'm going to show you how to do that. So on replit.com, you'll see these two buttons at the top. So I'm just going to click on log in, and I'm going to click on continue with GitHub. So when you click on this, it might ask you to sign in with your GitHub and then authorize Replit to your GitHub account. I've already done that, so it just takes me to the home page directly. But make sure to authorize and give Replit permissions if it asks you to do that. So whenever you want to start a lab, you will start by creating your own REPL. And you can do that by clicking either of these blue create buttons. And these will let you create your own environment for the GitHub repo or the specific lab assignment that you want to open up. So let's just create a REPL for today's lab. So you'll notice that there's a button here that says import from GitHub. So you can click on that. And then it's going to ask you to paste a GitHub URL here. And what we're going to put here is what you've been using for the git clone command. So if you just go into the GitHub repo, I'm in my lab 6 repo here. You can click on the green code button and grab the URL for this repo. And when you copy that, that's going to be what you paste into this GitHub URL right here. So just make sure you click on private if it's not already selected, and then you can just click on import from GitHub. So what this is essentially doing is it's equivalent to like typing git clone. It's going to take the files in the lab that you're trying to make a REPL for, and it's going to copy it over into your own programming environment. You'll be accepting the lab assignments on GitHub Classroom as you have been, so nothing will change on that front. What does change is that instead of typing git clone, you're just going to be copying that URL into Replit directly. So I'm just going to show you what this UI looks like. So in Replit, you have like the same components that you have been using in Sandbox. So on the left-hand side, we have this file explorer where you can see your problem directories and the files within them. There's a few other buttons here, which I won't go into today, but you can explore. But there's this one here called version control that kind of will show you some UI that allows you to commit and push to GitHub. So it makes it a little bit easier, but you can also just use the console as you have been to type in your git add and commit commands to push it over to your remote repo. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you have your file explorer. In the middle, you have the text editor. This is where you can edit your codes. You can open up your files here and then make your changes. And on the right-hand side, you have your console, which is equivalent to your terminal. So this is where you can write your commands. So I'm just going to show you what running problem 1 would look like once you're there. So essentially, you can type in the same commands that you've been using. So let's just try some of the commands that you learned in your first lab, some of the bash commands. So I can type in pwd, it tells me that I'm in my lab 06 folder. I can type in ls to see what directories and files that I have within this folder. So I'm just going to change directories. So I'll cd into problem 1, and I'll type in ls again to see what I have here. So in problem 1, you're going to be essentially implementing some member functions for the robot class. And once you've done that, you'll be able to run the main executable using /main, and it's going to ask you to input 2 robot icon files. We provided a few icons for you to use, but you can also create your own. As you can see here in the main function, we provided this helper for you that allows you to create your own robot icon. You can also make your own somewhere else and just like import them as images into your repo for you to use if you want to play around with it. But I'll just use the files that we have here. So I'm going to use robot1 for the first icon, and then robot2 for the second icon. So once you do that, it'll open up this window where you can see your robot. And then what we have is a listener that kind of like tracks where your cursor is, and the robot just kind of follows the XY coordinates for your cursor. So yeah, so that is an intro to Replit. I can just close out of here when I'm done. You can configure Replit to your own liking. It's a lot more configurable than Sandbox is, so I generally like to use dark themes. You can change the color scheme for your UI. You can also move things around, like if you wanted your console to be like up here, and if you wanted to put your like your text editor on this side, you can kind of just move it around based on what you prefer. So you can also like make new tabs and then open new files here. But yeah, this is a very brief intro to Replit. And over time, hopefully you'll grow to appreciate more now that you have had experience using the sandbox. You'll notice that Replit is a little bit more powerful and hopefully a little bit easier to use.